Hello, everybody. A very, very warm welcome to all of you to this webinar on how to overcome the verbal score plateau. So, if you are stuck at a certain score and you feel that you've been doing everything and nothing's working out, all right, you are just going back and forth between a certain range of score, this is the right webinar to be at. And let's hope today we're going to be able to help you understand how to overcome that verbal score plateau. All right. So let me get started by a quick introduction of myself. I'm Sunita. I'm the verbal head at GMATWhiz, and I've curated the entire verbal course of the GMAT Verbal segment. I've got tons of teaching experience and I have mentored thousands and thousands of students. I love teaching. I love finding simple solutions to the problems that students face through my private tutoring. I try to understand what problems they are facing and then try to find small solutions to that. So all this, even this webinar is an outcome of all my understanding of what's happening with students when they're trying to, during their GMAT prep. What are we going to discuss today? Let's quickly set that out. So I'm just going to spend about a few seconds on discussing what is the score plateau, although I'm sure all of you know that. Then we are also going to talk about the reasons why you are hitting this score plateau. Why has your score plateau? It's very important to know the reason before you even try to address the problem, right? And then we're going to talk about how to fix this problem, how to overcome this score plateau, how to break through the plateau. All right. And of course, I will present you with some actual GMAT quiz case studies where the students were able to break the plateau uh, through the steps suggested today in the webinar. So I hope today's webinar is really going to help you out. Hello, Janani. Good to know. Great. So let's get started, guys. Here we go. I'm just going to run through the slides, a few slides. I'm not going to talk about them at all. So the slide does all the speaking and we'll come back to these. Now, a score plateau. What is it? What is a score plateau? A score plateau is, when you have been preparing for your GMAT and you reach a certain score. Let's say it could be a 79, it could be 80, it could be 81, and then you're not being able to go beyond that. Even if you're trying to give more and more mocks, more and more practice tests, your score hovers around the same range. Now, it is not necessary that you are at a lower range only. Sometimes you can get stuck at wobble 81 or 82. Sometimes you dip a little bit below, then again go back to the same score. So that's a score plateau. Your score is not budging beyond a certain level. Do what you may. All right. And that leads us to the next question. Why does the score plateau, right? And primarily, trust me, I'm just going to use a very broad categorization for this because of the way we approach verbal prep. All right. And when I say the way we approach verbal prep, don't worry. I'm going to expand on that bit by bit, little by little, and tell you exactly what you need to do to fix this problem. That also, I'm going to talk about study plan, I'm going to talk about error logs, I'm going to talk about everything. But be patient. So the primary reason why the score plateaus is the way you're approaching verbal prep. It's all wrong. So what's wrong with it? Now let's understand the general psyche of students. How do students generally start their prep? I mean, you let me know if you identify with this. So when you're starting your GMAT journey, what you think in your head is, okay, the quant section is all mathematics, verbal means English, which means reading and comprehension is like, okay, reading passages, CR is about different kinds of questions, assumption, inference, this, and DI is a mix of something quant and verbal. This is a broad thought process. Is there anything wrong with this exactly? Well, right now, not yet. Okay. The problem starts with the sequence in which students study. So whatever they study, okay, let me just look at the concepts. Then I'm going to practice some questions on this concept. Let's say I've done the concept of assumption. I'm going to practice questions on that. Then I'm going to give some tests. If the test doesn't go well, then I'm going to practice some more and then I'll give some more tests. If that doesn't work, I'll practice some more and I have seen students keep doing this. I mean, there was once a student, who came for private tutoring to me, and he said that I have solved 3,000 questions. And I was like taken aback, really taken aback. Okay, so this is the most popular sequence of study: concept, practice, test, concept, practice, test, concept, practice, test, till I hit the whatever mark I want to hit. All right. In fact, a lot of tutors even ask students to do this. You just keep practicing more and more. However, I mean, does this work? So let's see in general, and you'll also be able to, let me know whether you identify with this. So, typical learning process, if you're doing RC, is okay. You learn about the various question types. So, we have main purpose questions, we have inference questions, we have parallel reasoning questions on RC. Okay, we've learned the question types. Now, let's solve some passages. And sometimes your tutor will suggest to you, okay, you should read newspapers, you should read books, you should improve your vocabulary. All right. And you solve passages. But how to improve? Does anybody tell you what to do then? Usually the idea is, okay, you read more, you solve more passages, you'll perhaps improve. And if you don't improve, okay, maybe you can take up some reading and then you will solve more passages, and it goes on. Similarly, if it's RC that we're CR we are looking at, okay, learn about the various question types: assumption, inference, weaken, strengthen, paradox, and then solve some questions from the OGs. If the Prep Institute has given you some question bank, you solve from there, or you solve questions from GMAT Club. And how to improve? Okay, practice more and more. So basically, it's just practice. In this case, does practice make man a perfect? Well, practice always makes a man perfect, but there's a catch to it. What is that catch? I'm going to talk about it. Just hold on. So the result of all this practice is that initially your score does improve. So if you are at, say, somewhere when you began, you were at 78, 77 verbal, you might improve to 79 and then maybe even 80, or sometimes even up to 81. And thereafter, do anything as you might, it doesn't budge, it stagnates. And all through all of this, the focus is entirely on time saving strategies, on strategies that will help you save time and therefore solve. So that's why the verbal score plateaus, because you are approaching the whole thing from a very, very wrong angle. Now you might be asking, if we are approaching this from the wrong angle, then what to do? What is the right angle? And that's what I'm going to discuss now. So this is where our major discussion starts. So stay with me, and if you have any queries, let me know in the chat box. Hello, Kashish. Good to see you here. Okay, let's get down to the main thing. Now, you want to break the plateau, right? You want to go beyond your 80, 81, 79. You want to get to a new score. Huh? So, if you want to change the score, what do you need? Change in your approach. What is this change I'm going to talk about? The solution is that you need to follow the right method of your preparation. What is the right method? So the first step that you need is to change your mindset, guys. Yes, change your mindset. I have met so many students who think that, okay, quant is all about, formulas. I'm going to learn the formulas. It's so easy. I'll be able to apply it, and I'll practice more, and I'll be able to improve on my timing and stuff like that. But verbal, no, how will I do that? I've never been a very good reader. I don't read books. How am I going to manage reading and comprehension? And it's usually like I'm stuck between two options. I don't know which is the better answer. No, this mindset, this is a better answer, that is a better answer. This mindset is wrong. There is only one correct answer, and there are four incorrect answers. All right. So, see, these are small, different mindsets that you have, different things in your mind that you have. That, oh, I'm able to bring it down to the last two choices, and then I'm stuck. Oh, this is the better answer, this is not the better answer. No. Or you think that RC I can't do because the word, it's very word heavy, and because my vocabulary is very weak, I'll not be able to resolve passages. Or again, this topic, this genre, that genre, science I can't, or humanities, I don't know what to do with it. So many things, huh? Time. I cannot solve time, rush. All these things you are blocking your mind to the right approach. You're constantly bogged down by these thoughts, and instead of doing the real work, you're constantly moving between these. So you need to change all this. You're not a reader, doesn't matter. Trust me, I've been a very good reader all my life, and still I could not really do very well when I first attempted GMAT when I was a student. All right. When I too used to prepare like this. At that point of time, I also faced the same hurdles. So I was an avid reader, but still I faced a problem. And for as long as I can think, till the time I kept thinking, oh, this looks like a better answer than this A, or D looks better than C. I was always confused. I have a very strong vocabulary, yet I was not able to score a very good score when I first gave GMAT long time back. And as far as topics are concerned, oh, I've been teaching for so long, I should have done very well. All right. In fact, I was able to finish my verbal section way before time, and yet I was not able to get the score I wanted initially. Of course, after that, the story is very different. I've scored the 99 percentile a couple of times now. So, mindset change. All these myths should be busted and dusted. Okay, that's the first step. You should inculcate positive thought process. The problem is not with verbal so much, but it's the way you think verbal is. People think maths is very objective, but verbal is very subjective. The test maker can write a sentence in a certain way and it may still be wrong and things like that. No, verbal is not subjective, it is as logical as quant. And if you are struggling with your verbal score, the problem is not with you. It's the way you are solving questions. There, I have said it. The way you are solving questions. I'm going to show you an official question today, and I'm going to let you solve it. And then I'm going to talk to you about what should have been the way to solve that question. All right, we are talking about approach. So problem is not with you, not that you are bad at English as such. Okay, it's not good or bad at English, it's the way you are approaching the question. Verbal is easy. The answer's there in the stimulus or in the passage. It's all there. You don't have to write your own answer, right? So it is just the process that you'll have to look at. And here, if you think that if I solve more questions, if I solve 50, 70, 100, 120 questions or more and more, I'm going to learn more. The point is not that. All right. Focus more on learning from each question. I mean, see, the OG, the official guide, provides with you a certain number of passages and a certain number of CR questions. And those numbers contain all the different types that you are likely to get. Trust me, if you only just stick to one OG and you solve all the questions there, but for each question, if you are solving it through the right method and going through the solutions in the right way, you will learn a lot more than solving the question. See, solving takes 2 minutes, but when you review the solution, all right, that takes about 15 minutes. Proper review with an error log. I'm going to show you that also. And that is where the real learning comes. So that in a particular question, whether you get that question right or wrong, if you are solving it the right way, if you're going through the solutions, if you are, reviewing the solutions properly, you will learn a lot more. So positive thought process, okay? Change the mindset. Now, the core problem in verbal is the approach, right? And everybody tells you, okay, you've got to read the passage properly, you've got to read the stimulus properly, but no one tells you how to read properly or how to analyze properly. This how to, nobody tells you. I'm going to tell you today. All right. Focus should not be on time saving reading strategies. Okay. The focus should be to understand the passage precisely. How? What do I need to do? Like literally speaking, what are the steps I need to take? All right. So you need the change that you need is in your reading style. See, you're reading CR stimulus, you're reading answer choices, you're reading RC passages, you're reading TPA passages, you're reading MSR tabs, you're reading. How do you read? Okay. We're going to take an example, but before that, let me see if you have any questions here. So let me just quickly go through the questions that you have here. Kashish, science passages. Okay, I'm going to talk about how to read passages, and I think the passage that I'm going to bring up right now, Kashish, that will also help you. Creating mind maps and things like that. All right. In fact, personally for you, Kashish, when I approach science passages, I draw diagrams. Let's say if I'm reading a passage on black holes, no? So I take to drawing diagrams as I read so that I understand the whole process. I'm not from a science background, right? So there are a lot of things I'm not familiar with. And I know this much that I don't need outside knowledge to solve that passage. So all that I need to know about black holes to solve the questions on that passage will be there, and I focus on the words given there. I draw diagrams, so that could help. Prabhat says humanities based passages. Yes, I tend to choose the wrong option, but just because of one word. Prabhat, um, we at GMATWhiz have a small video which talks about confusing words, and this is exactly it. Students get confused between analyze, evaluate, describe, present, content, qualify. We tackle this problem. We know that students face this problem. We tackle this problem. All right. So, Kashish, I'm going to talk about all these things. Shalini is saying sometimes I do hard questions correct and sometimes easy question wrong. I'll tell you why that happens, Shalini. Very interesting, huh? See, when the question is easy, what you really mean is the language is easy, it's very fluid. You don't have to struggle to understand anything. Now, because you don't have to struggle, what you do is you just read the whole thing in one flow without really breaking or pausing or inferring or correlating anywhere. That is deceptively easy. And when you go to the questions, you make mistakes. On the other hand, a hard question is hard because the language is hard. Now, because the language is hard, you have to slow down. You have to stop every here and there. You have to reread the sentence to understand the meaning. Because you're doing that, stopping, pausing, understanding, therefore, the hard question, you are more likely to get correct. So, this has happened with me as well, and I know how it feels. Huh? So, Shalini, you won't know in the exam whether it's a hard question that's popped up, whether it's an easy question that's popped up. But you need to approach all your questions with the same speed, same strategy. And I'm going to show you that right coming up right next. Okay. Subi says business terms. So Subi, for business terms, there's a suggestion that I could make. Why don't you? So every time you read a passage on business and you come across, say you come across a term like economies of scale, or you come across a term like, let's say, purchase department, anything, something very very simple. Why don't you just Google and find out more about it? Agreed that everything that you need to solve will be there on the passage, but perhaps knowing the meaning of some words helps. Say, what is capital gain? All right, these kind of terms. But don't worry, the definition is always given in the passage. You just need to look at the context. CR questions are an issue. Prathamesh. Okay, so CR, whether it's CR or whether it's RC, how you read, you'll realize when I show you that how you read will matter. One part is how you read, how you approach the questions. The other is how do you review your solutions? What do you learn there? Okay, so we'll talk about all of those and let's get started. Let's take an example. All right. Now, in RC or in CR, as you were saying, some of you right now, very common problems are you're confused about the meaning of certain words, analyze, evaluate, qualify. And at times you constantly need to refer back to the passage. So during my private tutoring sessions, I see that students read the passage quickly and then they go to the question and they go back and forth between the question and the passage. Or if it's CR, they've read the stimulus quickly in just 30 seconds. They go through the options, they spend a minute and a half on the options, rule out all of them, then go back to the stimulus. All it is common problems. And of course, because of all this, because of constant confusion, you are not confident when you're marking answers. And that lack of confidence can actually make you go wrong in some of the other questions. These are some common problems. So, how to resolve these problems? Here is an official GMAT questionnaire. I want you to give this a shot. I'm going to give you exactly 4 minutes so that you can read this passage and you can attempt that question. 4 minutes will be enough, or you need more time? Yes? Okay, 4 minutes. I'm going to mute myself. And please don't Start putting your answers in the chat box until I request you to do so. Just hold on to your answers. Let everybody have a fair chance of solving this. Okay. Let's get started, guys. Do it the way you would normally do it. You have 4 minutes and your time starts now. 4 minutes to solve the question as well, all right? Not just to read the passage. So let's get started with this. I'm just going to mute myself and maybe I'm just going to make this full size. Just keep the answers ready with you. I'll tell you when to post them. Those who've just joined, we are going to discuss how to fix the score plateau that you've hit. So just solve this passage and we'll be on our way. All right, you can start putting in your answers. Time is up, guys. Yes, let's look at your answers. Go ahead, quickly. Prathamesh says C, because this is going to be, when I show you how to read this passage, that is going to be the game changer for you. I've got C, I've got B, I've got C. So Prathamesh C, Redicted AF B, Subi B, Kumar Satyam C. Guys, please do share your answers. That is going to encourage me also to talk to you. Kumar says C, Ashutosh B, B, B. It's between B and C, it seems so far. Yes, can I have some more answers, guys? There's so many of you out there. Do participate. That helps to, get the, I mean, that really sets the juices going. So Shiv B, then I have Monica B, Ashutosh B. So it's B and C. What if I told all of you that all of you are wrong? See? Now I'm going to show you the right approach to reading. And guys, right approach to reading is the most important thing that you need to do to break your verbal score plateau. Okay. So it's not B, it's not C. All right. And Prathamesh seems to have fallen, prey to the mindset that the best of the lot. Okay, it happens to the best of us. And I'm going to show you, seriously, if you follow that diligently for the next 15 days, it's going to be a game changer for you. You will thank me. So let's get started. I'm just going to mute my camera so that we are going to focus totally on this. And maybe I'm just going to put this on the bigger screen. That will help. So how to read this passage? Okay, the right reading style. Now this is one of the most important steps. Apart from this, the next important step is to go through the solutions properly. I'm going to talk about that as well, but let's understand how to read properly so that you are able to break through that plateau that you have been facing. Now let's take it bit by bit. All right, see how, where, I mean, all of you have read it in your own ways. See how I am going to read this now. It is an odd but indisputable fact. I'll stop here. Now, a lot of us, this is one single sentence, guys. How many words do you think there are in this single sentence? And what will you understand if you read this entire sentence without pauses? Suppose you're reading like this. It is an odd but indisputable fact that the 17th century English women, who are generally regarded as among the forerunners of modern feminism, are almost all identified with the royalist side in the conflict between royalists and parliamentarians known as English civil wars. And then you realize, well, I have understood some parts of it. So either you, if you're scared about time, either you'll go to the next sentence thinking, okay, when the time comes, I'll come back and I'll read more. I'll read in detail. But how many times does that help? All right. Or if you don't go forward, you'll go back and reread the same sentence and still not be very clear about what it meant. So right from the outset, because you know that there are long convoluted sentences on the GMAT, because of that, right from the beginning, we are going to break down sentences and read. And when we break down, what are we going to do? We are going to deep dive or infer. It is an odd but indisputable fact. So, right away, we know that we have the author's opinion. The author finds something odd, but the author does not actually dispute it. It's a fact. What is that fact? That the 17th century English women, and I label this, okay, I'm going to talk about 17 EW. The 17th century English women, all right, we are going to talk about them, who are generally regarded as among the forerunners of modern feminism. Okay, so these 17 EW, they are considered to be the beginners or founders of modern feminism. So what about these English women is odd? They are almost all identified with the royalist side. Okay, so the author finds it odd that these 17 EW are all from the royalist side, whatever that means. And we may know what is royalist, we may not know, but just stick to the facts. This is something the author finds odd, but this is true. They are all from the royalist side. In the conflict between royalists and parliamentarians, known as the English Civil Wars. So, now summarize. So, we have English Civil Wars and we have two sides here. What are the two sides? We have royalists, we have parliamentarians, and all 17th century, let's call them EW, sorry, they all belong to this royalist side, and this is what the author finds odd. That means the author is probably asking himself, why don't they come from the parliamentarian side? If you, how many of y'all had this kind of understanding, crystal clear understanding of the first sentence, guys? Go ahead, be honest. How many of you had this kind of understanding? If you had, just type in yes in the chat box. And if you did not have this clear an understanding, sorry, type no. Let's see some yes and no's. Come on, go ahead and encourage me also. Thank you, Kumar. Honest. Yes, how many of y'all had this kind of crystal clear? Ashutosh says +1. Okay, Ashutosh. Thank you. Redicted AF says drew a small flowchart. Great. That's very good. Understood this part honestly. Great, Prathamesh. Yes, it was clear. So good. For some of you, it was clear. Some of you, it wasn't clear. Fair enough. I think the real meat is going to come. See, you don't have to write. I am writing this to just tell you where I stop and what I think and what I recap. I'm not a very big fan of making too many things, writing down too many things. No. If at all you need to summarize, just a one word or two word summary is sufficient, but that should be your takeaway. So, good enough. Now, let's go to the next sentence. Okay, so let me just clear up this part so that I can, yep, all of this. Let's clear this up. Now, so the key takeaway is to break and read. All right, you can see that you can see all the places where I am breaking and reading, and my understanding of the sentence. So many places I broke down, but I won't need to reread this sentence again. Let's go to this now. This is the second sentence, and this is one sentence, guys. This is not a paragraph. This whole thing from since till men is single sentence, and within this sentence you have another sentence. Now, for such structures, what I do is I read the part outside the sentence, outside the dashes first, and then I tackle the dash. Okay, so here I start. Since. Now, since is a transition word. At GMATWhiz, we ask you to pay attention to these words because they form the character of sentences, they connect the sentences. Since royalist ideology, okay, royalist means we are talking about these people, one side. The royalist ideology is often associated with, okay, so they are talking about royalist ideology. Radical patriarchalism of 17th century political theorist Robert Filmer. All right, in a nutshell, royalist ideology is associated with patriarchalism of Filmer. Who is Filmer? I don't know. But his patriarchalism, his idea of patriarchalism is also the royalist ideology. So, because royalist ideology is associated with patriarchalism of Filmer, that is why historians have been puzzled. Okay, so we are back to this odd fact. Now, I'm going to constantly keep relating with the story I've already read so far. So, already I've read there's something odd. What is odd? These women all belong to the royalist side when there were two sides. And here we are talking about how the royalist ideology is something that puzzles the historians. Okay, so because royalist ideology follows patriarchalism, and we'll come back to that, historians have been puzzled by something. What have they been puzzled by? That royalist women. Okay, which royalist women? We're talking about these 17th century English women who were all royalists. These royalist women wrote extended criticisms of absolute subordination of women in marriage. Okay, so these royalist women did not like the fact that women were suppressed in marriage. So they wrote against that. And these royalist women also wrote the earliest assertions of women's rational and moral equality with men. Remember, these royalist women were beginners of feminism. They were feminists. So they did not like women's subordination in marriage, and they wanted women's equality with men. So what's odd about it? What's odd about it? Let's see. Now I'm going to read the part within the brackets. Okay, let me clear the part outside the bracket. So these, what does the bracket say? Now the bracket talks about patriarchalism. What is patriarchalism? Let's understand that. If you already know, good. If you don't, Robert Filmer's patriarchalism is a patriarchalism that equates family and kingdom. Okay, so family equals to kingdom. This is this I'm thinking in my head. Here I'm writing so that I can show you my thought process. And asserts the divinely ordained absolute power of the king, and by analogy of the male head of the household. So king is powerful, and by that same comparison, the male head of the family is also powerful. That means patriarchalism is about male power. But these royalist women, they don't want women suppressed by male power. They want women also to have that power, right? They are against women's subordination. They are against the male wielding power. And it's strange that these royalist women belong to a household that follows patriarchalism. Okay, so that's the odd part. That's what is odd, that these royalist women, they belong to a family or a side, all right, which believed in absolute male power, but these royalist women themselves were feminists. Okay, so such a long sentence and so many things to be discussed here. Royalist ideology, how it is against the ideology of these royalist women. Let's read the last part. Some historians have questioned. Okay, now the author is telling us that the historians have questioned something. The facile equation, facile means simple, equation of royalist ideology with Filmerian patriarchalism. Okay, so here we are talking about royalist ideology associated with patriarchalism of Filmer. And here we are saying some historians have questioned that association. Okay, does the author also question it? Let's read that. The author is saying, and indeed, there may have been no consistent differences between royalists and parliamentarians. So the author is now back to the two sides. The author is saying it is possible that the two sides did not have any difference in between them on issues of family organization and women's rights. But why is the author talking about parliamentarians suddenly? But in that case, one would expect early feminists means the 17th century English women, to be equally divided between two sides. Okay, so in this last paragraph, the author is saying if the royalists and parliamentarians had the same ideologies, then why don't we have these 17th century English women coming from the parliamentarian side as well? So, if I summarize, the first sentence is the introduction of that indisputable strange fact. The second sentence tells me why this fact is strange. It is strange because royalist women were feminists and the royalist ideology was anti-feminist. It was patriarchal. All right. And we talk about the author's agreement here. And the last paragraph says there should be a reason for this oddity, for this anomaly. So this is how you read the passage. You break down and read, you connect and read, you correlate and read, you draw inferences and read, you map and read. And after this, if I provide you with another, you know, sentence here, I'm giving, please go ahead and read this sentence and tell me what is the summary of this sentence. Go ahead. Yes, guys, go ahead. Read that last bit that I've just now added and tell me what is the what is that sentence doing. You can write to me in the chat box. What is that sentence doing? The last sentence that I have just added. This sentence here. I want you to tell me what is the purpose of this sentence. Remember, we are right now trying to understand how to break the verbal score plateau. One of the first steps that you need to take is to break the way you read. You need to read like this. You need to break down sentences and read. You need to draw inferences as you read. You need to correlate and read. You need to map the passages and read. Yes, what is the purpose of that last sentence? You know, can you add to that? Anyone help me out here? Yes, anyone who can. Yes, Kashish, I will discuss this. Just give me, at the end of the session, I will have a Q&A round. Please remind me then that you want to take mock tests. See, have you taken any sectional tests? What is your approach? How you're doing it? What is your accuracy so far? Hmm. Danger of royalism. Ashutosh, quite close, explains the reason for the odd fact. Very good. So, if you read this last sentence, it says Catherine Gallagher argues that royalism engendered feminism. Engendered means gave birth to feminism. Okay, it gave birth to feminism. How did it give birth to feminism? Because the ideology of absolute monarchy, okay, which ideology? Here, absolute power of the king, provided a transition to the ideology of absolute self. So it was the royalist belief of absolute power of monarch that led to the absolute self in feminism. So as Prathamesh and the other person also put it, this is the reason for that odd thing, and that example is given of Mary Margaret Cavendish. So this is how you read. If you read the right way, if you follow the right, if you form the right flow, you will be able to answer the questions in under a minute. Like, you should take more time to read the passage. Say if it's a 4 question passage, then out of the 8-9 minutes you're expected to spend on that, all right, you should spend at least 4.5 to 5 minutes only on the passage, and under a minute on each question. And that is the right way to get the right score. Thank you. Prathamesh says he used this approach and it helped. It will, trust me, just 15 days. Initially, okay, I'm going to talk about the time thing also. So just give me a little bit. Yes, Venuja, you must read the whole passage before you attempt the question. All right. I have a lot of webinars that I hold on YouTube on RCs. Maybe you can go and watch one of those webinars in detail. Okay. So now the thing is, this was the full passage, I just gave you the first paragraph. This was the full passage. The time spent. Now, I would have spent 3.5 minutes only on reading. Remember, I gave you 4 minutes. So, out of those 4 minutes, 3.5 minutes would have gone in just reading that first para. But the second para, I would have taken less time because all the context I have set up in the first para. And this is always true. If there are 3 paragraphs, then I take more time on the first paragraph, then a little less, and then, down to the third para. Because the first para is so important to set up the context. If you read a sentence and you understand half of it and you go forward with the half understanding, you will always, it'll always be a, okay, will I do this? Will I get this right? Will I not get this right? Kind of thing. But when I go to the questions, I'll be able to solve those 4 questions in 4 minutes. So ultimately, how much time did I take? 3, 4, 5, 5 and 4, 9 minutes. I'm done with a very hard passage and with high accuracy. On the other hand, okay, if you're just skimming and reading the passage, which most people do, just quickly read the passage and go to the question and then come back to the passage again and again and again. What they do is initial reading, quickly skimming through 1.5 minute, 1.5 minute, done. But when it comes to the questions, because you have to constantly go back and forth between the passage and the questions, you take more time. And you make errors. That's the worst part. 10 minutes, but lower accuracy. So if I compare the time, look at this time. Look at this time. All right. You are still going to save time. And with practice, that 9 minutes can come down even further. You might ask that what's the big deal if it's just 1 minute difference. Trust me, guys, if you're doing 4 passages, you're saving 4 minutes from each passage. Okay. It's not a small thing. And consider the kind of accuracy you'll get. Right now, all of you who have posted your answers on the chat box got this question wrong. All right. Let's look at the question. I mean, solving the question was not the purpose, but still. The author of the passage refers to Robert Filmer primarily in order to. Now, let's quickly do a little bit of pre thinking. You should always pre think a little bit, recollect your thoughts about what you know about Robert Filmer. So, how was Robert Filmer mentioned? Robert Filmer was mentioned to introduce patriarchalism. And patriarchalism was introduced to tell us that this was the ideology of the royalists. And royalists and the royalist women were in the opposite direction. So Filmer's patriarchalism tells us that the royalist women were against this patriarchalism. So Filmer's patriarchalism was introduced to tell us that the royalist women were against that patriarchalism. All right. Now let's go to the options. So if I had to complete this sentence, Robert Filmer primarily in order to show the contrast between the royalist ideology, let me write I, and the royalist women's writings. Okay. In order to show that royalist ideology, so I'm reading A now. Show that, all right. Show that part is okay. This is fine. Royalist ideology, all right, was somewhat more radical. Were they trying to say that it was more radical than what historians realize? No, this is out. Qualify. Now, what does the word qualify mean? The word qualify means to put a limitation on the understanding of something. To put a limitation. Now, a lot of you might have thought the word qualify means to support. Qualify does not mean to support, guys. Qualify means to put a limitation or restriction on the meaning of something. You've got to ask yourself, is the author trying to put a restriction on the meaning of something? No. The word itself is wrong. The author is not qualifying any claim. Question the view. Is the author questioning anything? Well, the author is calling something odd, so I'm just going to leave that. Most early feminists were associated with royalist faction. Now, this is the indisputable fact. The author is not questioning this fact. Okay, the author is not questioning the fact. In fact, C is just the opposite of what the author is doing. The author agrees with that fact but finds that fact um, odd. Okay, so let me just clear up this all this writing that I have done here. So far we've ruled out A, B, C. All of you can see that. Highlight. Highlight means, show, bring to attention an apparent tension between royalist ideology and ideas of early feminists. Exactly. Tension is the contrast, and definitely the contrast is to show that royalists followed patriarchalism and the feminists were against the absolute power of patriarchal theory. E says, argue that royalists held conflicting opinions. No, it was not in that context. So I can just rule it out. And this is how to solve the question itself shouldn't take too much time if you have read the passage properly. Yes, Prathamesh, 1 minute, 1 minute, 1 minute, 4 minutes. Okay. So this is the step that you need to inculcate to read well, whether it's MSR, TPA, CR, RC, or anything, if you want to break that plateau. If you want to move beyond. So, see, why are you going around that plateau? 79, 80, 81, 81, 82, 89, 79 back to 79 back to 80. Why? Because 79 is the median mark. And if you're hovering around that mark, it means you're able to get the easy questions right. You're able to get some medium questions right. But when it comes to medium, hard, and hard, you're falling back. All right. So that is why you're hovering around the median mark. You're not able to break that plateau. You want to break that plateau, you want to be able to get hard questions correct. If you want the hard questions correct, you need to have a very, very different approach. But the problem is in the exam, you won't know what is a hard question, what's an easy question. So you have to learn to tackle all passages the same way, all stimulus the same way, all TPAs the same way, all MSRs the same way. Prathamesh, when you are trying to, first you have to learn this approach. This approach should become a part of your, let's say, intuition, your mental makeup, your habit, it has to become a part of your psyche, this way of reading. First, you do that. First, you learn this. Now, learning is one part. Then, mastering. Mastering means every day in and day out, every time you practice, you solve this way. You make an error log. I'm going to talk about all those things. All right. Okay. So, let me just move to. Now, timing efficiency will develop over time. See, initial stages, you will take 7 to 10 minutes, sometimes even more, to read the passage in this manner. We call it involved and evolved reading at GMATWhiz. Okay. And when you solve the 4 questions, you'll take 4 to 5 minutes initially, because you're learning, you're doing things consciously. Conscious practice of a skill will take time. You learn driving, you learn swimming, you learn painting. Everything takes time initially, but then once you learn it, okay, the advanced stage is where you want to read it through, reach through practice, is where you're able to read the passage up to, within 5 minutes, depending on the length, the difficulty level, and 3 to 4 minutes on the question. This is what you want to reach. All right. Skimming is not going to work on GMAT, guys. Please understand that. Whether it's the CR stimulus that you're reading, whether TPA stimulus, whether MSR tabs, whether data sufficiency questions, whether quant word problems, you cannot. All right. I mean, just look at GMAT RC. Almost all questions are inferential in nature. You won't get anything written right away except for the detailed questions. How can you hope to solve these questions, by just skimming the passage? Okay, look at questions. Which of the following is the author most likely to agree with? What is the function of the word renaissance? Which of the following is the author's opinion? These will not be written anywhere. These are 700 level questions, and they will ask you to refer globally from the passage, not in one particular place. Okay, you read the question, you jump to that particular place, you read the answer, and then you come back and you mark the answer. It doesn't work like that. Okay, global inference is required, not local inference. So skimming doesn't work. The key difference is, instead of focusing on reading speed, please focus on comprehension speed. Focus on that, and everything else will get sorted. And at GMATWhiz, we teach you we how to read. Okay, you were asking step by step. First step, where should you pause? How should you take care of complex words? How should you differentiate between facts and opinions? How should you understand this is the author opinion and this is somebody else's opinion? How should you understand the intent of the author? Step by step, small videos we have inculcated. If you look at, this is a slide from our courseware. This is the skill builder. Over 10 hours we have spent just on building the right reading skills, and that's so important. All right. Now, all of this that I've showed you, you might be asking, is it even possible? I think some of your questions actually were asking that. Uh, you know, that how is this even going to work? Now, I'm going to discuss a few cases with you guys. Bear with me. It's important. This is one of my ex-students, Balaji. He is currently studying at Columbia. All right. And when he came to me, um, he was exactly in the position that we are discussing today. He had hit a plateau, 36, 34, 35, 36, 34, 35. He told me that in a month he'd taken almost all mocks available by various institutes, and the score had never gone beyond this. This is the time we're talking about the classic version. Eventually, he scored a quant 50 and a verbal 44 with a 100 percentile in RC. But when he came to me, he was literally in tears. But with the change in the approach that I just showed you, not just in CR but also in RC, and at that not only in RC but also in CR, and at that time there was also sentence correction. He was able to achieve his dreams. All right. He when the first time when I showed him how to read, he was like, he said that is it doable? Can I do this on the exam? I said, don't think about the exam right now. Do it on a daily basis. See whether it works for you or not. All right. Don't believe me. See whether it works for you. Then I had Rishabh, retaker. All right. He'd studied for GMAT extensively, used very good renowned courses, but he was also stuck at 670 and verbal 35 mark after lots of effort. 2 months of intensive practice, giving mock test after mock test after mock test, but no improvement. And he improved. He worked with me for just 20 days. Okay, consultant, very busy, working in UA. He would study with me at very odd times, but he was able to improve his score to verbal 41 in just 20 days using the GMATWhiz methodology, and he got selected to INSEAD and yellow. I'm talking about real stories. I'm not talking about fantasies. Srikar, I mean, he came to me with a verbal 78, guys. Okay. Now, of course, he didn't improve from 78 to 86 in 15 days, but he improved from 81 to 86 in those 15 days. But before that, we built the entire skill set. All right. When he came to me, he was actually at a 78. It took him time to move from that 78 to that 81, and then from 81 to 86, mastering the approach. Bit by bit, bit by bit, bit by bit, really painstakingly. It's very interesting, right? This guy did not rush to finish all 23 questions in 45 minutes. No. He found that, I mean, we discussed the strategy before he went to the exam. I told him, look, Srikar, focus on the first 19 questions. Make sure that those 19 you're able to solve with due diligence, following the approach to the T. Don't worry. Even if you don't have time for the last four, just mark them. You will get your score. And that's what he got. He just marked the last 5 questions, if I remember correctly, got all of them wrong, but still managed a verbal 86 because from 1 to the 90, I think 1 to 17, he got all questions correct. Then I have Ria. These are all real stories. You can watch their debriefs on YouTube. If you type their names, if you type GMATWhiz, you will be able to see. She'd taken the test, and she scored a 615, but verbal fell down horribly, especially RC. She worked with me for 15 days diligently. I told in the beginning, she didn't believe me. She said, Sunita, this is so slow. If I do this, I'll not even be able to complete half my paper, half my section. I said, trust me on this. When she saw the results, okay, and this better reading habits change not only verbal, they also change other sections. So these are real stories. How did they improve? In a gist, they improved their understanding of the methods, the approach. In CR, we use framework driven pre thinking. How to pre think? You train yourself to pre think during the learning phase so that in the exam, things come to you automatically and quickly. You can literally think on your feet by following the involved and evolved reading in RC. They focused on the approach. And the next step, they reviewed the solutions in depth, even for the questions that they got right. Usually, what people do is incorrect questions. Okay, let me look at the options that I was confused about, and that's all. No, that's not all. The real learning is in the solutions. And for that, you need properly written out solutions the way we write them out at GMATWhiz. Okay. They identified the patterns that they were, uh, seeing in their incorrect choices. For example, they could think that, oh, I'm always landing up choosing distortion, or I'm choosing the opposite of what I need to choose in a CR question, and so on and so forth, bucketing those. And then they would revisit the weak areas to improve their understanding. All right. Finally, last but not the least, you have to believe in yourself and your approach. This is actually very, very important. Having faith. Ria was so shaken, her at work. She was constantly, it happens with everybody. A lot of work pressure, and constantly you're undermined for your abilities. You lose faith in your abilities, but you need to believe in yourself. You need to believe in the approach you're following, and that is how you will improve. How to develop the right schedule? I think a lot of you were asking questions on this, and I'm going to talk about this. So, all right. Prathamesh, yes, it should become a part of your. In fact, it will become. If you follow it diligently, it will become a part of your lifestyle. So, how to develop the right schedule, guys? Now, as I mentioned earlier, common study strategy is learn concept, practice questions, do more questions, and then again do the same thing again and again. If your questions don't work out, again practice some more, again do this, again. It's a cyclic thing. This is a common strategy and doesn't work, guys. You need skill based learning. That means you need to develop one skill at a time. I mean, if you really look at verbal, there are some common skills that are tested here, right? What are those skills? So for verbal, comprehension skills are there, analytical skills are needed, your ability to focus on the main point. But these skills all cannot be crammed and just learned in one go. So first we start off with CR. The study sequence that we inculcate is first you start with small steps. Critical reasoning, one paragraph, 3 4 lines, where you learn to break down and read the sentence. You learn to draw inferences as you break down. You learn to connect the sentences. You learn to correlate and then draw conclusions. So comprehension skills, and from those conclusions you learn to analyze. All right. When you are strengthening the conclusion, weakening the conclusion, you're learning to analyze the solutions, analyze the situation. So these two skills are learned first, and then from this we transition to reading and comprehension skills, where you also learn to focus on the main point of the author. So skill based learning you need to inculcate. You learn the right methods, guys. Critical reasoning, you learn how to pre-think. A lot of people say, I can't pre-think. Yes, you can't pre-think on your own, but what if we provided you with the right framework, the formulas to pre-think? So learn the right method in RC. Do follow the involved and evolved reading. You should have a a set approach, for yourself. You cannot have an ad hoc approach. As the questions come in, I'm going to solve them. The stage, learning stage, I mean, again, to iterate, you learn concepts, and from there you should actually master the concept, and then you should practice questions on the topic. This should be the right way of learning. First you learn the concept, then consolidate it, then master it, and then practice questions on the topic, and then finally you take the test. But what people do is they jump from stage 1 to stage 3. They learn the concept and immediately start practicing questions, hoping to score well. But just practicing is not going to help. You're going to repeat the same mistakes if you don't make any changes. And if you repeat the same mistakes, you're going to get stuck in that zone, in that verbal zone, as I said. You will not move beyond that 80 81. So what you need to do is you need to make sure that for the success of GMAT 700, you master the approach. You were asking how to master the approach, right? I'm going to talk about that. Mastering the approach means analyzing the solution. Mastering the approach doesn't mean solving more questions, solving more questions. You solve a question, one question at a time. Time yourself if you want to, but follow the process, even if it takes you more time. And then go through the solution. The effort that you need, if you want a verbal 85 plus, you need to give yourself time, guys. You cannot just rush and do it. You need to give yourself time. I mean, learning the right method is first step, but mastering it will help you achieve the goal you want. All right, learning the method itself is not going to be enough. So how most people analyze solutions? They review the questions they got wrong. All right, in fact, not only just that, they only go and look at the options that they were confused between. Oh, I was confused between B and C, and then I chose B and it's the wrong answer, so let me look at B and C and that's enough. No, this doesn't work, guys. You won't see any improvement in your score. You need to analyze properly, means you need to refer to solutions that show you a consistent and logical method. I mean, I'm sure you have seen the solutions across various platforms and books and stuff like that. But how many places do you really have a solution which is following the same method over and over again? If the method is consistent in the solutions, you will also learn that consistent method. You will also learn that logical method. So you need to follow solutions which are really written out carefully. At the end of the session today, I'm going to share with you two links. You can go and check out the trial version of our course and see how the solutions are written. All right. And when you are going to the solution, you verify each solution and your thought process against the solution, irrespective of whether you've got that question right or wrong, and go through everything. You should spend 80% of your solving time in reviewing the solutions, whether it's the sentence, it's the argument, it's the passage, or whatever that you need to review. You should note down where you deviated from the solution. So oh, this is what I was thinking and this is what the solution says I should have been thinking. Note that down in the error log, that this is what I did wrong, this is what I missed, this is what I did not do, and summarize the error log from time to time. This is a sample of an error log. You can take a screenshot. You need to have an error log that's going to give you actionable items, guys. That's going to tell you what you can do to solve. For example, let's say you solve a question, solve one question at a time, put the question link there, write down the time taken so that you can later on filter and check your trends, your answer, correct answer, difficulty level, topic. The important part after going through the solution is, did you miss anything even if you got it right? Did you do anything wrong even if you got it right? What is the takeaway? What do you need to do? What do you need to improve on? What do you need to work on? And at the end of every week, summarize this error log and then move to the next week. All right. Suppose this is a question. I'm not asking you to solve this question, guys. Let's say you did this question and you chose an option. Now, how to review the solution? GMATWhiz, we have the solution written in 3 steps. Step 1 is analyzing the stimulus and the question stem. Step 2 is pre-thinking, and step 3 is ACE, answer choice elimination. You can see the detailed solutions that we have written. All right. And you need to match. Okay, I read this sentence. Did I think this? Did I think this? Did I think this? Did I think this or not? Was I able to infer this or not? Similarly, from this sentence, was I able to, from these two, was I able to draw this inference? Was I able to infer this? Was I able to reach this conclusion? This is how you will match your thought process against the properly written solutions. And same thing you will do for pre-thinking, and same thing you will do for answer choice elimination, that have I eliminated for the right reasons or not? Okay. So in putting in the time for all of this, you need a study plan and certain factors you need to consider so that you're able to break that plateau. What is the time that is available to you realistically? Okay, what is your target score? What are the resources that you've already utilized? Have you taken any expert advice or not? What have you done? What are your strengths and weaknesses? What methods are you using or have used? What is your learning style? All of these together need to be considered. You need to sit down and chalk out a path for yourself. Now, you might sometimes we might need to not only, I mean, mastering approach is of course there, but sometimes if there are conceptual gaps, how to understand that. So if your accuracy is less than 60%, it means you have conceptual gaps, and that means you need to go back to the drawing board. You have to start from scratch, the basics. Let's say for example you take up inference in CR, or if you're taking up assumption in CR, first you go through the concepts, everything in detail, the video lessons or whatever course you're following. Learn the concepts and formulas, learn how to solve it. Like today we learned how to read a passage. First you learn how to solve it, and then you practice 15 to 20 questions of that particular type. Okay, if you have conceptual gaps. If your accuracy is somewhere between 60 to 85%, it means your concepts are probably in the right place, but you are not applying the concepts properly. In that case, you have to not only learn how to solve the question, but you have to learn how to solve it methodically, like step by step. And then you practice 10 to 15 questions of that particular type to master it. Okay, and always work on improving your areas. So whatever you identify as your weak area, let's say if you identify that in CR I'm often not able to identify the conclusion correctly. Okay, so now you have to go back to the basics and understand what denotes a conclusion, what are the triggers for a conclusion, how do I recognize the that this is the main conclusion of the argument, or this is the main point of the author, and then solve and review some questions of that type. Focus on the process. Are you doing the process right, even if it is time consuming? So you improve on weak areas one by one. Remember, quality of solving is more important than quantity. Don't just rush to solve tons and tons of questions, and then you scale that up. So you optimize weak areas, and you work on your weak areas, then you take sectional tests, all right, and then you take the mocks. You don't need more than 5 marks, 4 to 5 marks overall. And you reiterate the process after each mock if the score is below expectation. So let's say you took a mock and you realize that your score was a certain, it was not as good as you wanted it to be. So now you analyze, go through the solutions in detail, check out what other areas that are weak for you. Now you go back and work on it. As I said, if it is below 60%, go back to the concepts drawing board. If it is between 60 to 85%, then you go to the approach, you work on the approach. Yes, it helps to take one-on-one private tutoring. It does help to take expert advice, because sometimes we are not able to see ourselves what we're doing wrong. So that was for today, guys. I hope this was really helpful for you. And if you have any queries, I'll be very, very glad to answer your queries. Go ahead. So Ashutosh, you says you take time in similar reasoning. I think similar reasoning, you mean the parallel reasoning. You try to map the relation. Um, Ashutosh, perhaps that mapping is not accurate and therefore you are going wrong. See, when you are mapping a relationship, now you should not include too many details into it. Then you should focus on the structure. So okay, this leads to this leads to this, or this, see if there is something missing, or the language. If when you are mapping, the mapping has to be done properly. We don't have enough time for me to show you how to do the mapping here, but yes, your mapping probably is going wrong. You need to break down and read your sentences. I think, Ashutosh, when you're looking at the stimulus, break it down bit by bit, understand the relationship in each uh, bit that you have broken down, and then from there you map. Prathamesh, all the best. In fact, all the best to all of you. I hope you do really well in your exams, and I really, really, really hope that whatever you learned today will help you break that verbal plateau. Um, so you can, there's a number on the screen, SB. You can reach out to us on that WhatsApp number. and we'll discuss with you. Yes, Prathamesh, please go ahead. In fact, anybody else, if you have any questions related to your prep, I think Kashish, I hope I have been able to answer your query about the mock test. Yes, Prathamesh, go ahead. Prathamesh, there is nothing wrong. See, I'll tell you. So you have these simple questions in CR, na? Which of the following, if true, weakens the argument? Now, when you look at the screen, you have the stimulus, you have the question, and you have the answer choices. Your eyes will automatically quickly follow on that question stem. And if it's a short question stem, no problem in reading it right ahead. But if it's a long question stem, sometimes the question stem might contain some more premise, some more facts or details which you need to include in your solution. So what will happen is, even if you've read the question first and then you read the stimulus, you'll come back and reread the question. So if it's a very long sentence in the question stem, I would say don't read it first. If it's a very short thing like weaken the argument, strengthen the argument, assumption depends, and that's okay if you read the question stem first. But it's a long question stem, then you will need to read it again. In CR, you can read the question stem first in that sense. But RC, please don't make that mistake and read the question first and then you start reading the passage. Yes, I don't see any other queries. Let me just go through this. Okay, I'll just quickly share two links with you guys. So there is this link which you can use to book a free call with our strategy experts. If you're facing issues with your prep, and you don't know what to do, you want to discuss it with someone, you want to find out what to do, how to move ahead with your prep. If you're stuck, there's a link on the screen right now. You can use that link to book a free call with our strategy experts and discuss your problems with them. Any other queries, guys? I'll be glad to answer your queries. So just to recap, if you want to break through that verbal plateau, you need to change a couple of things. Change your mindset about what verbal is. Verbal is not subjective. It's as logical as mathematics. Change your mindset. Number one, change the way you read data. Simple. Read the way you read. Change the way you practice. It's not enough to just solve more and more questions. You have to solve the right way. Learn to review the solutions. Follow a course which is going to give you the rightly written solutions, in-depth solutions which will help you understand your own shortcomings and which will help you to work on your weak areas. All right, I don't see any other queries coming up, so all right, guys, I really hope this was helpful. So, all the very best to all of you. I hope you get your dream score and you break through that verbal plateau that we were discussing today. And I really hope you are able to inculcate all the things that we discussed today. Have patience, guys. This will not uh, happen. It won't be that overnight you're going to be able to improve whatever you want to improve. Be patient with yourself, be kind to yourself, but be consistent. Make sure that every day you are practicing bit by bit by bit. All right, that consistency is going to pay off. Be disciplined, don't give up on yourself, believe in yourself, you can do it. All right, so take care. Thank you, all of you. I should thank you instead of you thanking me, because without you this webinar is meaningless. And I hope to see you guys around.